Thanks. We'll get back to the meeting now. Kevin, I know you had this under your documents in the fire board meeting, but I actually think it needs the board to make the approval for the raises you want for the shift and on-call guys. So would you mind going over that for us now?
Certainly. Well, Bob and I worked through the budget this last, is it 9 months now, Bob?
At least.
And one of the big things I thought was important for everybody is a pay raise. Some people at McDonald's are making more than our guys, but so we're raising. This is not a significant raise, but this is in the budget, so it looks pretty good for us right now. But the basic currently makes $11 during the AM and $10 at night. We're just raising that to $11 for both shifts. EMT basic engineer makes $12 during the day and $11 at night. We're raising that to $12 for both shifts. And the medics currently making $12 for AM and $11 for a night shift. We're raising them to $14. And paramedic engineers going from $13 and $12 to $15. So we put that in the budget, so feel pretty confident that this is doable. Of course, we got to check that every quarter as we're going along, make sure that's still working. So I propose that we do that starting on the 11th, since we just finished the pay period on the 10th, and then from going forward with it. Oh, and one other thing, for an additional $1 per hour for the officers, which has always been the same.
And you and I talked about this. You looked around and you thought it was pretty comparable to what most of them are doing. It's not the highest, but it gets us in the ballpark.
Knoxford just recently raised theirs to $18 for their medic engineers, and we can't compete with that yet, but it's comparable for the areas. We looked around, and for the paid on call departments, not the full-time departments, it's pretty close to what, should correct me if I'm wrong, what Indy starts their firefighters out at. Yeah, it's close.
Okay. Well, then we need a motion probably to, let me see if I can phrase this right. We need a motion to approve the adjustment to the shift and on-call firefighters to match the schedule proposed by the chief to take effect. Hold on here, can we want to do this effective August 1st?
August 11th.
Well, no,
wait.
Put it in, but she said it would.
Well, my question then after we talked about that is if we go back and make it retroactive to what is in the budget, it should go back to April 1st.
Okay.
But they won't get it, I mean, they'll get it in their next check.
They'll calculate the differential, give it to them. So it's retroactive.
Because when we talked about that, we
talked about it on April 1st.
But it got kind of confusing when we talked about when it would go on the check, and I think we just kind of got mixed up in the conversation, but then I went.
The motion would be to put these rates into effect back to
retroactive
April 1st to 3rd. So get it in a subsequent check.
In their next paycheck.
And adjust Kevin's pay.
Well, let's do this motion
Okay, this
first.
one first, okay.
Second.
Any other questions or
Wait, who made the
comments?
motion?
Seconded.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes.
Any from the audience? Okay. Patty, would you take a roll call?
Yes.
We have some.
Jim Christopher is excused. Dale Kaysen.
Yes.
Robert DePalma.
Yes.
Pamela Mazick.
Yes.
And David Adams.
Yes.
And we need to also make
Yes.
an effective date for, well, we can't really make it.
Finish this.
People. Yeah, we got this. It's done.
But we need to approve Kevin's salary, and if you're going by the April 1st budget.
Well, we can't on that one because he can't be chief until after July 11th, so I think his should be August 1st.
Right, it's his, but you still have your other full-time. This is just your on-call, your shift.
Right.
What about
And we're going to do the full-time too.
in the full-time
Right.
after?
Okay.
Yes, we'll make sure
So,
you forget that.
Do you want to make a motion or we try to rock and roll? We also want to give the full-time firefighters who had their raise held until after the initial discussions on what we're going to do with the fire department. So we would like to approve the 2% raises for the fire department and adjusting Kevin's pay to the chief's pay effective August 1st.
The full-time are going to be retroactive back to April 1st.
I'm sorry, you're right, that's right. Yeah.
Retroactive back to April.
I can't make yours retroactive because you can't
No,
be two chiefs
do
at the
that
same time.
motion, do that
I'll
first.
second.
For the other.
Full-time.
All right.
Take a motion.
Any
take a
other
vote.
questions or comments from the board? From the audience? Patty, take a roll call.
Dale Cason,
Yes.
Robert DePalma.
Yes.
Pamela Macy,
Yes.
David Axe.
Yes.
And Jim Christopher is excused.
Now I'll make a motion to adjust Kevin's pay and benefits to that of the chief. He's paid $80,000 starting August the 1st.
Second.
Is there any other questions or comments from the board? From the audience? Patty, would you take a roll call?
Yep. Robert DePalma. Pamela Mazik.
Yes.
David Axe.
Yes.
Jim Christopher is excused. And Dale Cason.
Yes. Okay. That will be the fire chief. Okay. That takes care of that. Next is, fire training class. There's a class that the MTA is putting on, which I ran by Kevin, and it deals with updating on the EMS updates for the state of Michigan, some radio issues, recruiting and compliance and cooperation. So I ran it by Kevin. He thought it looked like a pretty good class too. So what I'd like to do is, frankly, send both Kevin and I to this. It's in Frankenmuth, so there's no lodging. We'll go in the chief's car, so there'll be no mileage. It's just a one-day session for both of us, and the fee, if we sign up early, is $113 each. So I'd like to suggest that we approve both Kevin and I going to the Frankenmuth class, which is, I had the date here, September 17th.
Second.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Any from the audience? Patty, take a roll call.
Pamela Mazik.
Yes.
David Axe.
Yes.
Jim Christopher is excused. Dale Cason. And Robert DePalma.
Yes. And Patty, I'll give you the email link on that tomorrow. Maybe you can
Yeah.
sign us up for that one too. Okay, next is to discuss the Local Stabilization Act, and that was the issue that Ken Palka was talking about. What happened is the state has started to phase out personal property taxes. They made a commitment to municipalities to keep the municipalities whole for that part of the dollars that was coming in. In our case, just so you know, we don't have a big business district, so the overwhelming majority of our personal property tax is actually the power corridor that runs through the township and the gas and oil lines that went through for Enbridge. And those are not exempt from personal property tax. So the small amount of personal property tax we had is being replaced by this fund that comes in the treasurer's office. And in the past, even though we can divide it up between the township and the fire department, Dave has put it all in the fire department's coffers. And I think there's general consensus among us. We prefer to do that, but Ken was suggesting we should have a motion on record to officially do it going forward. So,
Last year, they changed the rules.
is that what it is?
Before that, all of
They
it
didn't say.
had, before that, all of it had to go to the police, fire, ambulance, jails. That was it. There was no township getting anything unless the township fully funded the fire department, which we didn't. They've got their own fire fund. So starting last year, but I missed that. I didn't catch that rule, so I got busted.
But it all went to fire.
No.
It all went to fire. And my recommendations have continued to all go to the fire, because it's not that much money anyway.
I think it was about 23, something like that, 21.
It's less than 25 per annum.
So, is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Any from the audience?
I have a question. Jason Sack, Perryville Road. Is there a cell tower too that the township makes some income on?
Mm-hmm.
So how is that? Is that part of that?
That
as
comes
well?
into the general fund.
Just general fund?
The only other cell tower that the township has any connection with is the one back here, which we've agreed when we did the negotiations with the county that if somebody locates on that, we would get the revenues from the co-located antennas. But the problem is it's almost dead center of Bambi's home. So we all know there's a dead spot here. and so do the cell companies. They're just not concerned about whether or not the wildlife can get cell signals, so none of them have wanted to go on it yet. The only other thing we get out of that antenna for picking up the ownership, even though we didn't pay for the antenna, is the generator on it is big enough to back this building up. So when there's power outages, and it happens fairly frequently out here, this building comes up on power off of that generator at the same time as cell antenna for the emergency. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. If not, motion was made
Money.
for the money. Patty, would you roll call?
David X.
Yes.
Jim Christopher excused. Dale Casey.
Yes.
Robert DePalma.
Yes.
Pamela Mason.
Yes.
Okay, and then there's a new item F that Dave had us add here, which is the email for the building inspector.
Yeah, it was requested that the ordinance enforcement officer, fire marshal, and building inspector, all three, get an email that's entitled Inspector at Groveland Township .net at a cost of $5 a month that I'd like to do.
Is that your motion?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board, from the audience? Okay, take a roll call.
Okay, Jim Christopher is excused. Dale Casey.
Yes.
Robert DePalma.
Yes.
Pamela Mason.
Yes.
David X.
Yes.
Okay, there's nothing under resolutions, under miscellaneous reports. Patty, do we have anything for?
No, Holly.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shelley, I apologize, you're right.
I'm not Holly, that's right.
Yeah, you don't have anything for that one. I'm sorry, Shelley.
Yes, there is a couple things.
And she's not dressed in first clothes.
They are, Holly Area Youth is having a fun blood drive on the 21st at, where is it? At the Methodist Church, called it Methodist Church. And you can set up an appointment so that it's smooth right in and right out. And also we are collecting school supplies, just have a bus for the kids. So that
we put that on the sign.
Yep, we put it on the sign, we got a box out front, we're collecting until the 22nd. That's helping kids that don't have the supplies to go to school with. And then also, if anybody knows of anybody in the area that they have any troubled teens, there is still money for assistance to go into either camp, music lessons, driver's ed, whatever it may be.
Did we have anybody in Groveland that utilized any of that last year? What?
Shelley, the blood drive is it August or September?
August 21st.
I'm just curious, I wonder if you went to the mobile home parks, because they've had a lot of new tenants.
And that was a suggestion that we made at the last meeting, that we're going to go around.
They probably don't even
and
know. I
promote.
bet you could just go to the camp, to the mobile home parks manager.
Mhm.
In fact, if you want to do that, you tell me, I'll go with you. To give me
Okay.
a chance to tee them up for Patty and I talking about what we want to
Oh, all
do
right.
with the census, okay?
That sounds good.
So we'll give them kind of a,
Maybe give
here's something good for your tenants, and here's another reason why they need to
Yeah.
respond to the census, so that we all get the money from the state.
Yeah. All right, sounds good.
That's good. The school supplies.
There's a list,
Yeah, there's a list, so we take
and
a
cash
list.
is fine, I can go shopping and buy the supplies if you don't want to go shopping.
Maybe here in our office, we all want to maybe chip in as our office, and
Yes, that would be nice.
that'd be great.
Okay. Next is Brandon Groveland Youth. Do you have anything on that?
Well, tomorrow there's a meeting. Did you have anything, Pam?
No, I don't. No, I don't have it. No, I don't. The money that the township put into Brandon Groveland Youth Assistance, it was 2016 money, but they were their CDBG funding. They did purchase calculators for the students to use at school for their classes, and so budget money went for that. And I guess we have a little bit of money extra still in there that they're going to use for a student for driver's training.
Planning Commission, Dale, I think you said there wasn't anything.
I was absent last month's planning commission.
Okay, and BZA, we don't have anything to report on, Jim's not here. Supervisors, the only thing I can tell you is I finally made some progress. I wanted to get some real rough preliminary ideas and drawings done for the township's property. so that I can show it to the whole board and see if we can get a consensus on kind of direction we want the property development to go in. And I finally secured an agreement from Oakland County's Planning Department. They've got a couple of architects that are part of the Planning Department, and I have a meeting set up with them for the 28th of this month to kind of outlay some of the ideas we've had. And John White, I think, will probably be there from the park project too, and see if we can't get some renderings done to at least get us started on a work session where we can see if this is the direction we want to go, and that won't cost us anything. I'm trying to get that done before we would ever spend any money on hiring someone for a more finalized, better presentation on how we would want to pitch the project. So that's the one good thing that's happened on it. I also talked back to the professor at the University of Michigan, and he's reworking a few generic slides that we might use for the lead-in in it. I gave him some suggestions and additional information I got from the county on anticipated draw for the park. And so he's going to work that in, and when I get both of those pieces together, then I'll probably set up a work session for the board to see if this is kind of the direction we want to start going in. So that's all I really have for the supervisor's office right now.
That's the same date as our planning commission meeting and our special.
Planning commission meetings from 3 to 5 on the 20th.
Yeah, I think this one is at number 1 or something. It's a different. No, I got them all scribbled in.
Or did it have an overlap?
Okay. I might be driving quick, but I got them all in on there. Okay.
All right.
Anything for the clerk's office?
I do, I want to
Great
just say
election.
about great elections. I just can't tell you how much I really want to give great big applaud, handout to Teresa and Patty. They just were amazing with this election. They took right over. I've been kind of stepping back because of course I am going to retire later this year. And they were amazing with it. And we had new machines.
Yeah, the people came out big numbers.
And we had a 31% turnout, which is really, it's quite an increase for a primary. So, I'm really confident. And we did not run out of ballots. We did not have to print any ballots. It went really smooth. Everything worked really well. So thank you. You guys were very.
They all did a great job on it.
Great
I didn't
job.
have any complaints that I heard about. People were very happy going through.
Carrie and Shelley worked in the precincts
And we had
So-
split precinct and that went well. We didn't have
I
anybody
did have
lost.
to show my ID because.
we make everybody show their ID.
You have to show them the card again too.
The card, I even showed it to him. I put it with my license.
So that's really all I have to say, just on the and Carrie and I have been working very closely with Jenny 78 with the Planning Commission to just, I know we weren't there last time, but we're looking at changing our procedure for how we allow accessory buildings, and maybe if we will at all allow accessory buildings to be constructed in the front of a principal resident, because many times we get a lot of requests for that, and then they go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So when you're looking at, you've got these requests and you're still, you're allowing still for that to, get approvals, somewhere along the line you have to look at it, because maybe we need to readjust those rules. And we're working on that, accessory buildings, some of our sign ordinances. If you remember last month, we updated our fee schedules for land divisions, and so we've got a first one in that's coming in, so we're going to kind of see how that goes. So, getting some things smoothed out. That's all I have to say.
David, I know you just got that.
I just got back and thanked Shelley for holding the working on while I was gone. She did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, well, are there any other questions or comments?
I just had a question for Pam, because you just said you're retiring. And then earlier, when you guys were talking about the MERS conference, you said that you were kind of prepping Patty for you. Are all the positions voted for, or?
No, not yet. No. We
What
haven't-
happens is the board votes for who fills in until the next election.
And anybody, I will make a recommendation, but of course it is like any office or any opening here, anybody can bring in their resume and for the board to take it.
So you, not that I
No,
You do a great job. I just
Fine.
I didn't know you were retired, so.
Gotta ask.
Yeah, so when, like,
So,
Okay. Yeah,
Is the floor open for general comments?
sure. Yeah, can you give us your name and your address?
Jeff Maxon, 1155 Markle. First off, I'm no stranger to board meetings, and the way you're running yours to me is fabulous.
Thank you.
I've never seen a board ask for the public's questions and opinions during line items.
Oh,
It's
we
recognized.
usually do.
Okay, it's recognized, thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question though over your ordinance officer.
Okay.
Where I come from, prior to living here, the ordinance officer would walk up to your property and look, count your dogs, see a car that is abandoned there with no tags on it, and so on, and enforce those things. I'm being told by this office that unless you make a formal complaint and have basically start a neighborhood rivalry, that you will not do this. And I really question that when there's blatant problems.
Honestly, there's not that much ordinance work here that we can have a guy full-time. So the ordinance officer that we have actually is a fireman and fire marshal that does our fire inspections. And then usually one day a week he does the ordinance work. So he usually responds to the calls or the complaints that come in. That's just how we do it. And he doesn't do them all on the same day, although generally ordinance work I think is on Fridays, Patty, if I remember correctly, right, Kevin? Yeah. He responds to complaints. We have, in a rural community like this, a situation where probably it's hard to put down every kind of situation that you can think of in an ordinance, like you might in a subdivision where there are much more stringent rules. So honestly, I'm just telling you, every supervisor I know out in the rural suburbs like this does it the same way. If there's something that isn't right, you tell us, and then we'll have the guy go out and look at it.
Well,
and decide.
I've told you, Chief McGee has approached this for me to the officer, and this continues to happen, and nothing has changed.
Well,
so I don't understand, what do
is
I
it?
have to do?
You've had a complaint on an issue that hasn't been addressed, is that what you?
For 9 years, yes.
Really?
Yes. I have consistently come into this office, I have called, I have gone through the.
Yeah, 9 years, I probably had 3 ordinance officers.
So, yeah, so here's my frustration.
Okay. If you have, Carrie, do you know which one it is?
which one are you talking about?
What addresses are you talking about?
I'll rather do that in private.
All right. If you give it to me later, I'll try and find out what happened on it. I can tell you in 9 years, we've probably had 3 or 4 different ordinance officers. A lot of them haven't been there that long. But Jeremy, when we have, has really been very good for us. He's been able to get them done. It does take time. But if you've had one that you've called and it hasn't been acted on, if you give it to me today or tomorrow, I'll try and follow up on it and find out what happened.
Yeah, and it's just that it's like this particular residence, I mean, it's not that it's unknown to the police department and so on, so you would just think something would happen, and I'm really I normally don't come into a meeting like this to voice my complaint, but I'm at that.
I'll look into it. I don't know if to tell you until I find out what happened on it, because I'm being honest with you. The complaints generally come in, Carrie writes, takes the paperwork, gives it to the ordinance officer, he follows up on it. He'll try and give me an update on it periodically, but I'm just being honest. I don't see them all the time right away, but I will look into it if you've got one that you want to give me.
Yeah, I'll love to see you up to me.
Okay.
Okay, I did have a question.
Yes.
Now, you said for about 9 years, have those complaints come in here to us?
Mhm. I have come in and voiced my complaint many times at the desk. I have phoned the complaint, and I've spoken to Chief McGee. I know the state police have been over multiple times, I've spoken to them. So this is a multi-level job. And
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing I've noticed. I've had a couple of people say, we had a complaint on it, and then we found out, well, it was closed once, but my experience, there's 2 things I tell everybody. There's no ordinance that we can write that makes a bad neighbor a good one. I wish there was, but there isn't. And the other thing we find out is most of the ordinance violations tend to be, you ever listen to the news, you know, and you hear this guy, he robbed somebody, and then 4 years later, he robbed another one. It's the same thing with ordinance violations. The same people do them repeatedly. There's a couple of them in this township that until the day we get ready to take them to court, they don't fix it. And then they know the judge is going to hammer them, and they clean it up, and so it gets closed out, and within a couple of weeks, they start doing it again. They're just, for lack of a better phrase, habitual at it. And those are the hard ones to get fixed, but if you talk to me, I'll look into them.
For sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we adjourn this and go to the fire meeting?
I just,
Can I rename your address?
my name is Steve Hortek,
Mhm.
Merkle Street, Oakville.
Mhm.
Same complaint, I have called several times, and nothing is, I was actually told that unless I come in and filled out a formal complaint, nothing would be done.
Well, and I know why they tell you that. We have had a case where, several cases where somebody could be buying anything, a dog or something from somebody. And whatever they were buying didn't go right, and they don't even live here. They live in Southfield or something. And so they call in and say, I'm complaining about this address doing such and such. And I'm being honest, we don't do much on it. Somebody out of state calling or out of township calling. So again, if you have that same thing, if you give it to me, I'll look into it and find out what the deal is on it. And just make sure I get your name and number at least before you leave tonight, so I know who to call and how to get a hold of you. Please don't give me a phone number that doesn't have voicemail. Okay. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, if not, we're going to adjourn and move to the fire board.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Kevin, we're all here, we're all ready, and the meeting for the fire board is yours, and we kind of covered your deal on the money, but you also want to talk about Joe Keen and the alarms and stuff, give us an update?
Alarms, we had 87 for the month of July. Last year we had 127. The year before that we had 94. Obviously with no longer doing the village calls, it will be lower. So that gives us 768 for the year. And last year we were at 802 at the end of July.
But you know, that's kind of interesting, I just took the 127 from last year, times it by 55%, which is roughly what our run rate was of our alarms. And that would have only been about 70, and you got 87, so actually that's pretty good.
We went over the pay raises, but we did not talk about hiring Joe Keen to fill the safer spot that's opened up now.
Yeah, this is, we got to fill the head count that Steve has when he left the
Vacated.
payroll.
In order to maintain the safer, we have to stay at the same manning levels. So I'd like to recommend that Joe Keen was the next person in on that test that we did. So this is going off the old list. He was very close to Roscoe, only by like a point. He was lower than Roscoe. So he currently works at St. Joe's full time. It's a recent, but he says he thinks he can do both. And I talked to him today. He's on vacation.
You did call him today?
Yeah, I did call him today.
He's still after your and I discussion.
And he did say thank you and wish he could be here, but we didn't decide till today.
Take a piece of cake.
I'll put it in the refrigerator.
Okay. I don't think it'll make it that long. Okay.
I'll put it in his mailbox.
Okay. You're a pal, man. Okay, so you need a motion from the board then.
Correct.
And what effective date, Kevin,
Today?
today? Make a motion to.
Well, he's not back yet from vacation. Didn't you say he was on vacation today?
Yeah, but we can still,
But
We can-
the
we
You
can-
can approve him, but I mean, you'll hire him whenever it is he's getting back.
Yeah, he's still,
he's here already, so.
he's already.
It's just a change of status. so.
Today,
He's
we
got
don't.
changed his status.
Yeah.
Okay.
I make a
I mean,
motion,
he's
we
still
make
a
him
salary, so
full-time
we're
as
still
a
gonna pay
safer
him
grant
now.
employee, effective today.
The same benefits as the other safer.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Is there any other comments or questions from the board? Is there any questions or comments from the audience? If not, Patty, take a roll call.
Robert DePalma.
Yes?
Pamela Mazie.
Yes.
David X.
Yes.
Jim Christopher. Excused. Dale Kaysen.
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's all we have.
It's pretty light today, okay.
All right.
Another,
Adjourn.
any questions or comments from the public?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. Comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.